Yeah.
Have you read the 6 Types of Working Genius?
No.
Have you heard of it?
No.
No.
Tell me about this.
I just read it, or I'll say I listened to it because I'm an audio guy. Probably a month ago. Same thing. It's personality type, what you should be doing based on your personality type, and all this. But the thing I liked about that is it's very simplified. 6 geniuses. There's only 6, and what made a lot of sense is it kind of breaks it down into your genius is something that gives you energy. So it may not be something that you're even good at yet, but you're passionate about it, but it gives you energy. Then you have competencies, which just because you're competent there doesn't mean that you're not good at it. You could still be very good at it, but it takes energy from you.
Right.
So it's not necessarily sustainable long term. And then you've got the right side, which is basically, I forgot what they call it, but it's basically the negative. And it's like, you should avoid this because even if you're good at it, or it's called a frustration. So even if you're good at it, it's a frustration. So it's like the way I heard it put was like the frustration is like going to Starbucks, them giving you a cup of coffee with no lid, no jacket on it, and a hole in the cup. They're like, the coffee's going to cool off and then the cup's going to be empty in 5 minutes, I was like, oh, that's a good analogy.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. So I learned a lot about myself in terms of my genius and what maybe some of my frustrations are, and it explained a lot. And I was like, oh, okay. So now
that's cool, man.
I'm like, I need to plug certain geniuses into the business and support roles.
I feel like we need to throw a link on to whatever the Amazon link is to buy that book. We need to throw that into the podcast.
6 Types of Geniuses.
The 6 Types of Working Genius. Yeah.
I need to go read that.
Yeah.
I'm not listening. Well, I have to have paper in my hand.
Yeah.
So even like I don't know if there's a program on the iPad where you can mark up a book, but I got to have paper in my hand, a pen, my glasses, and I'm underlining, and I'm like, I'm one of those kind of learners. But yeah, I would love to check that out.
I'm right there with you as well. Like if I'm going to do that, I have to intentionally make time to read, sit down at the desk, do all that. But then there's times too where I want to consume the information, and a lot of times I'll do the audio, and then if it's something that's that good, I'll go buy the actual paper version and then treat it like a textbook. But that's one of those where you could go to the last quarter of the book and really get what you need, because the first, the first 3/4 of the book is just all the build up, all the storytelling, basically selling why this works. But I was already bought in before. I was like, I just need to know. I need to know where I belong. Yeah,
that's cool, man. That's a really neat concept. I like that a lot.
Then there's like those hyper optimal people. Have you ever heard that? Like the Instagram influencers like Alex Hormozy. That's like, what you need to do to fully consume the information is listen to the audiobook while you're reading. Yeah. I'm not into all that. Yeah, that's too optimal for me. You know what I mean? I can't be doing both.
I've done that a few times, but like I said, it's very select.
Well, what do you think? Straight from somebody that's done it.
It has to be it's in my opinion, it has to be a very like practical, applicable book. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where there's steps you have to follow. Do this first, then move on to this. Break this down. If it's just a lot of theory and all that, then you don't need it.
I would fall asleep. I think the problem I have with the audiobooks is not that I don't have a problem with them. They're great. It's wonderful. I do have a little trauma. I was emceeing an event for this well-known speaker, and he asked me for a ride to the airport, and I was like, I'm going to get to like hang out with this dude and talk to him and stuff. And then we get in, and he goes, hey, do you mind if we put on this audiobook? I told my buddy I'd listen to it. So no conversation from Melbourne to all the way to the Orlando airport. And I was like, this dude just didn't want to talk to me. Yeah. That's really what
that's wild, man.
Anyway, I'll cry about that later with my therapist. But really, I don't have the when I'm by myself, I have so much going on in my brain and like checklists and other things that I'm like processing, and I'm like, oh, I got to call this. I got to. Like I almost feel like I don't know. I don't know if I have to just. You
have to be able to turn it off. Yeah. You got to be able to turn everything else off to get in that.
Yeah, because when I'm driving to an appointment, like there's times I'll go to Orlando for a lot of appointments. When I'm driving I'm actually making business calls, and I'm working while I'm actually driving, and it's I don't know. I guess I need to prioritize that. We should talk about that.
I mean, it's the same in our line of work too.
Things to talk to me.
Joey, like what else is on your reading list, man? Anything like top of mind?
Oh, what is on my reading list?
Yeah, or things you read that you felt like were,
Yeah, I mean, the 6 types of working genius obviously was the one that I just finished, so that's high up there. There's a book that I always go back to every couple years because I feel like it gives a little bit more context and whatnot, and that's Extreme Ownership, if you guys have heard of that one.
Yeah, cool. That's Jocko, right?
Jocko and Leif Babin. Yeah, I mean, it's just very practical, and I feel like it's humbling when you hear stories from these guys, and they're over in war, and it's life or death, and they're telling these stories. You're just like, and I'm bitching about what over here, 100%. So it's very humbling, but at the same time, it's very practical. They've got another one, The Dichotomy of Leadership, that has been on my reading list for like 2 years, and just for whatever reason, I just keep putting it off. So I need to do that.
Nice.
Yeah. But
man, every once in a while I'll pull up that like Jocko good clip.
Good.
You know what I'm talking about? Have you heard this before?
No.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Man, it's a banger. It's just basically it's him telling a story about him and one of his employees essentially, and his employee called him and said like, "Oh, we got this and this going on in the business, like all this stuff going wrong." And Jocko was like, well, what do you think I'm going to tell you? He's like, every time I tell you this, you just say good. Like when something bad's happening, you say good. And he said, it's basically like that software that Jocko runs in his brain. Like, this thing is failing, good. Opportunity for something else. You know what I mean? Like he's just very, dude's extremely pragmatic, like stoic, optimist but not naive kind of thing. It's just like he's running like a war simulation in your mind. Like something happens and you just have to deal with it, kind of deal.
Yeah,
and it's a lot of fun to listen to.
Well, it's great too because that's life.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna go from good to the next wrong thing or the next crappy thing, and then and.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Knew this was going to happen.
It's the whole like what's next mentality. I accomplished this thing here. Okay, good. What are you going to do now?
Right.
Or I tried to do this thing and I failed at it. Okay, good. Now you practice, so now you'll be better at it next time you do it. It's just like good for you. Move on, keep going. Yeah.
But every once in a while, I'll try to run that simulation like immediately as soon as something bad happens.
Yeah.
And man, sometimes it's hard. Like that's a hard just to say good and like keep moving. It's like, I want to complain about it. I want to complain about it so bad.
Right.
What's fun though is when you have friends who have seen it as well, right? And they call you and they're literally upset about something. You just be like, good. And it's like a joke. It's a joke, but they can't be mad at the joke because they know you're right. So it's worth it.
Powerful stuff, man.
I'm going to steal that. I'm going to use that today. And I know I'll have to use it today because shit finds me.
Right.
So it's Well, that's a kind of a problem too. Another thing I need to write. Yeah. That's funny.
Awesome. Well, Joey, thanks for coming on, man. We're excited you're here.
Bro.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for inviting me.
Welcome to the Legacy Angel Network Venture Lounge, where nothing ventured is nothing changed. For Matt Helmenthaler, press 1. For member services, press 2. For real raw startup stories, press 3. For all other questions or concerns, please wait on the line in our
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Helmenthaler, and you're listening to Venture Lounge, after-hour conversations with founders and investors. These are the stories, insights, and conversations that you aren't going to find on the company website. Because the real lessons you learn in the startup world, the risks you take as an entrepreneur, the highs and the lows, the moments in your journey when no one else believes in you right before you break through, those are the moments that you just have to hear for yourself. So grab a drink and listen in to the men and women who are changing the world. Welcome to the Venture Lounge.
Welcome back to Venture Lounge, everybody. Nothing ventured, nothing changed. My name's Connor Sherman, creative director here at Legacy, and joined as always by our fearless founder, Matt Helmenthaler. Matt, what's up, bro?
How's it going, man?
Everything's great.
I like that mustard shirt on you.
Thanks, brother.
Very, very nice.
Appreciate that. Kept matching it with the shoes. We started like support a designer program here where Matt just hands me down his shoes like whenever, you know what I'm saying. So we got a good thing going on.
I got way too many shoes.
Yeah,
it's kind of embarrassing.
What size do you wear?
I'm a 14.
Yeah,
I was gonna say I'm a 12. Otherwise, put me on the list.
I was a 12.
Yeah.
The exchange that we could have if I was a 12, man. I'm telling you.
Matt has like New Balance and Saucony in like every colorway. You know what I mean? So it's really a good deal.
It's a little embarrassing. Yeah, you got more coming, buddy. You got more coming.
Joey Guest in the building, man. Thanks for joining us, bro.
Absolutely.
We found you from your YouTube channel, like real local Florida. That's killer stuff, man. You guys, how long you guys been at it now?
Believe it or not, that channel's only been up for about a year and a half.
Amazing. Amazing.
We were working on it longer than that. And just like, a lot of things in life, we're our own biggest critics. Mm-hmm. Myself included. I have really high standards for myself, what I do, what I put my name on. And, so it's not like I'm saying, hey, go there and that's my proudest work.
Hold on. And you came on our podcast? That's hilarious.
This is good.
So you're also a very giving person and you're very gracious.
I like to think of myself as giving.
Yeah.
Here's what was exciting about this is I was like, I just get to show up and not have any responsibility.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, why not?
Why not? Why not?
But all the work is killer, bro. I mean, you could at least notice like when someone's progressing, and when you got like a good thumbnail, immediately I take you seriously. Like immediately I'm clicking down that rabbit hole. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, that's like the difference between Mr. Beast. You guys seen his channel at all?
Who?
Like Mr. Beast, he's like one of the popular. I mean, you've seen him before, Joey, right?
Yeah.
Dude's like 24 and makes some kind of absurd amount of YouTube revenue. I mean, I'm sure it's like in the hundreds of millions at this point. It's the most popular YouTube channel on the planet. But anyway, the dude said I would pay like 6 figures for the right thumbnail.
I think he does actually. I think I saw something, and he pays. It's over 100,000. He has like a thumbnail consultant team, and the way they do this, and like. Not to go down too far down the rabbit hole, and if we do, that's fine. But like we study YouTube, like it's more than just like, hey, let's make videos and put them up there. It's more of like it's a whole nother part of the business.
It's science.
Yeah, we study it, and there's a lot of these guys that they come up with a thumbnail. They'll spend weeks developing a thumbnail, and once the thumbnail's developed, then they'll figure out their title. Then they make the video, and it all revolves around the thumbnail and the title. It's wild because it's really hard to do. If you've actually tried to,
I've never tried to
create a thumbnail and be like, let me just make a video now that works around this thumbnail. It's not easy.
I'm kind of like you. I come on this I just show up. And they do all the work.
Yeah. I know. That's all right, Matt.
I just show up and goof off in front of the microphone.
Matt, you get away with that because you're good content, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I guess it helps that I'm the founder too.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You're good content. Well, yeah. Now we're just hey Noah. We're talking to our editor now. Just like put a picture up of these Mr. Beast thumbnails that I send you. But dude, I mean. Like, look how they're so shiny, so bright.
Okay.
Like, so, he's got the sharks around him. Like, how would you not click on one of these? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No.
The dude's got it down to a freaking science, doesn't he? But
I mean, making hundreds of millions, he definitely
survived a plane crash. I mean, that just looks like something you want to click on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think all their videos now, the production cost is in the 7 figures on every video.
Wow.
But he's a cool reference point for how far you can like push, or he's really sweating the small stuff, and it's those little incremental changes that like really make you unique and push you in the digital landscape that is very crowded, obviously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you got hits too, Joey. I mean, the stuff that you're putting out that is like when people are searching for Melbourne, Florida, and they're interested in the area. I mean, you have to be one of the top results. That's why why those initial videos that you got are like really popping, right?
Well, that was what really sparked the fuse for YouTube. Is when I learned YouTube is a search engine and not a social media platform. I always looked at it as just it was another social platform. But when I understood what it was and who owns YouTube, Google. you know? So it's no coincidence now that sometimes when you Google something, that Google is indexing YouTube videos as indexed search results. So when you start reading between the lines and you realize, okay, YouTube's got the entertainment aspect, it's got the video element to it, and it is, you know, owned by the world's largest search engine. It's a search engine in itself. So if you can make searchable content, you know, in our business, we don't need millions of views. You know, it's like if you're a local service provider and you can get, you know, 5 warm phone calls a day, people that are saying, hey, I'm interested in your service.
Huge.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many hours could I spend talking on the phone per day? You know, it's not very sustainable. But if I make a video and I get 100 people watch that video per day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, I'm like, I can't replicate that with my time.
No way.
Yeah.
Right.
So it just,
that's cool.
Even you being here right now and making more content that's going to further things with your audience, it's like a case study on the work that you're doing. Like you're here because that you putting that work out in the world.
Right.
It's easy for people, especially like at our size of content creators, to be like, oh, like who am I? You know what I mean? I'm not going to put any of this stuff. No one's going to listen to this. Like I'm not. Look at all these people that get way more views than me, kind of deal. But they're not making specific content on venture capital and like in Melbourne, Florida, in the heart of, you know what I mean? It's like that niche stuff is like super important too. That's how you you know what I mean? That's how you create something that's never been created before. Right. Yeah.
Well, it's like with any business, what do? You have to get in front of people. And then once you're in front of them too, you still have to build a relationship. You have to build a rapport. Yeah. So how do you get in front of people? Well, there's the traditional ways of you put up a billboard, you call people on the phone, you knock on their door, you send them flyers. You're trying to get their attention. And then if you get their attention, you know, especially with cold outreach, you're interrupting whatever they're doing. Like even if you're running an ad on Facebook, you're interrupting somebody's scroll. So you're being like, hey, look at me. Now that you're looking at me, stop what you're doing and give me all of your attention. It's a harder conversion metric in my opinion. But when somebody is seeking something and now you pop up and you have the answer to what they're seeking. And now you have 10 other answers to other questions they have. And I can call you now. This, you know, it's completely different.
That's cool.
But it's funny because sometimes people will reach out, and I'll ask them, "Hey, how long have you been watching the videos before you decided to reach out?" And they're like, 4 months. You know, but if you got a lead in your business, you call somebody and they don't call you back within a week, you're like, it's a dead lead.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So it's that concept of when people are ready, they're ready.
Yep.
So YouTube gives us a way to not only prospect for new clients, but also nurture and build relationships with those people before we even really know who they are.
Well, I mean, it is pretty cool because by the time they call you, trust is already established. I mean, and when you're in the sales game, like typically you're public enemy number one. Like there's so much you have to overcome. I grew up in sales. I've been in sales my whole life, and what you had to overcome. I used to sell furniture. When they would come into the store, like the first thing, just looking. You know, I mean, they're like,
do not talk.
And so there's this thing, like you have to overcome all the layer of crappy salespeople that they've already encountered, so that they can see that that actually, no, I'm the person that's going to help you. I'm the person that's going to take care of you. And so by the time they get to you, the trust factor is already there,
right?
Because of the content, because of everything else. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, really cool. I hate the title. I hate the title that you get as a real estate agent or a realtor as being a salesperson.
Yep.
Because ultimately, if you take that mindset, to your point, you're the pushy, the sleazy sales guy. We try to take the approach of being an advisor, like, hey, we're going to educate you, give you the information, guide you on the way. You got to make the decision, right?
Yep.
But you're lumped into kind of that sales category, but you have to, at least in my opinion, you need to take a different approach.
Yep.
And at least that's our outlet to do that, is to try to educate people.
And I'm right there with you. And you have a people approach, and that's what will make you different, right? Salespeople care about their sale.
Right.
Advisors, they care about they're people.
Right.
So there's a there's a clearly a difference between the two. But to your point, like there is an education, there is a branding awareness that like when you get this company, you're getting something different. You're not. They're not trying to sell you. They're not trying to. It's cool.
Joey, give us your background, man. Where are you from? What are you doing?
Grew up in Central Florida, Orlando area, small town called Winter Springs, and I moved into Orlando. My wife's from Orlando, so we lived there for a long time. And I was a college dropout. I couldn't get my focus in college. I just I did what you were supposed to do. Went to college, got there, and they were like, pick a major. And I said, okay, I'll do this. And then I'd start taking classes, and I'm like, well, that job sucks. How about this? That sounds cool.
I lasted half a semester. I dropped out too.
I'd go to those classes.
I went to art school, so it basically doesn't count. That's what
It is the same thing, So I dropped out and said, hey, I'm going to become a firefighter. That looks like a cool job, So I did that. And after I graduated, got my fire certificate, my EMT, I broke my leg and had to have surgery on it. And at that point, believe it or not, that was a very competitive industry to get into. So here I am, guy that just got off of leg surgery, and they're like, yeah, come talk to us in 12 months. So I had to do something else. And so started an e-commerce website selling dietary supplements as kind of just a thing with a guy from high school. We did that for a while, and that was back in 2006, right when real estate was kicking. And I'm like, hey, this real estate thing's pretty cool. So got my license then, didn't really do anything with it. Got burned on a couple transactions that I felt like we talked about. Somebody just sold me on something, didn't really give me advice or the proper education, and decided when the market was in the toilet that was the best time to get in the business. And so I did. It was probably not a good time to get in the market, but you live and you learn. And I was just like, hey, if I can figure it out now, then when it's a normal market, I should be good, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of that. So then fast forward to 5 years ago, at the time, my wife and I had one son, and we were just, we'd always said, hey, one day when he graduates, we're going to move to the coast. Why? I don't know. That just made sense, right? Same thing. It's just what you're supposed to do. And so one day we asked him, we're like, hey, how would you feel about moving to Cocoa Beach? And he said, that'd be great. We're like, you wouldn't be upset? And he's like, no, why don't we do it? And so here we are.
That's awesome, man.
Figured out how to make it work. So that brought us here to the Space Coast, and loving every minute of it, man.
That's awesome.
So that's the Cliff Notes version of
that's cool. And what's nice too is you're not too far removed from where you were from as well. I mean, it's basically you're talking about like a 45-minute drive from there to Cocoa Beach and stuff. So how did your son transition? Did you transition well?
Great.
You loved it?
Yeah, it was great. Cool. He we moved. I would say it was like mid-school year, not ideal.
Yeah.
Right, but plugged right in, made friends in the neighborhood right away.
Nice.
They're out playing football on the street, riding bikes around, and I was like, oh, this is different, because I felt like we just have gotten away from that a little bit as a society, and of course as a parent you want to be protected, but I just felt like where we were in Orlando, that just didn't exist. No knock on Orlando, just what it was.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty cool.
That's cool, man.
And so he's been, I feel like he's transitioned great. And then we moved over, our second son was born, so he doesn't know anything else. He just knows that he grew up here.
Oh wow!
At this point.
So wife, two kids,
2 sons. Yeah.
So your other son's probably already like adulting. Like he's
15-year-old and 5-year-old.
15-year-old.
Yeah.
Wow,
people are like, are you guys like, what were you thinking? We're like, we weren't thinking. We had our oldest when we were little. We weren't too young, but we were younger. And then so it was like, oh, we're not having another kid right away. Then you start getting intentional, and found out that it wasn't going to be as easy as we had hoped it was. And so I think we probably spent 3 to 4 years trying, a couple of miscarriages in between, and it was kind of that like last go of like, we just kind of let go, and we're like, hey, if we're a 1-kid family, it is what it is. And we got blessed with our second one, and
Wow, man.
no
Congrats, dude.
complications,
That's
super
cool.
healthy.
Cool,
So
bro. That's
we're like,
great,
hey,
dude.
whatever. 10 years in between, no big deal.
Yeah, man. That's tumultuous stuff though to deal with, like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I'll be that 60-year-old guy at his, high school graduation probably, but no big deal.
I was the opposite. So my wife and I, we got married right out of high school because we're brilliant, and and then we started having kids like right away. So I have a 24-year-old son, I have a 21-year-old son, and I have an 18-year-old daughter,
Okay.
and I have a grandchild,
Okay.
and I'm 44.
Oh, look at that.
Matt's just getting
And
it
we're
in
done.
early, bro.
Yeah, we're done. We're done. The dishes are done.
That's cool though.
It's been pretty sweet. It's been pretty sweet.
What about like starting up in the real estate business, man? I mean, what did that take for you? I guess what were your kind of first like cutting your teeth in the industry kind of deal? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a nuanced conversation because, obviously, you do the math. I've been in the business for a while.
Yeah.
Got in at a horrible time. I remember, I think it was like 13 months before I actually had my first sale transaction. And that's not because I wasn't generating leads or opportunities. That's because literally the banking institution was collapsed.
Right.
And people were like, I can't get my assets out of the bank. There were no mortgages. It was just like, there were deals to be done, but they just weren't being done.
Well, what made you like stick with it? I mean, 13 months is like a scary time frame. Yeah.
I got into property management.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
I was making money and earning an income on the management side of the business while I was still building, a network and a database of investors. A lot of these people that were renting homes at that time they're not career tenants.
Mm-hmm.
These are professional people with good incomes that just, lost it all.
Yep.
And they had to do a bankruptcy, they had to do a short sale. And so there was that seasoning period before they could buy again.
Right.
So you knew, hey, you take care of these people now, they're going to buy a house in 3 years, 4 years.
Yep.
The investors were buying more real estate.
Long game.
At some point, they were going to sell real estate. So that was the the business model for a good 10 years, and got to a point where I had to make a decision: do I want to stay in property management? Do I want to focus on sales? I was kind of burnt out, to be honest with you. Realized if I wanted to stay in it, I needed to restructure the business. So I ended up just selling the portfolio, going into the sales side of the business, and then moving to a new market. So probably not the smartest thing to do, but it's just, I said, hey, we're going to do it. So it was almost like starting over. I kind of had to redefine myself as a professional, find my role, moving. I think I underestimated what it would take to build a business moving here.
Right.
In hindsight, I understand why and I respect why, and I actually value it because I feel like Orlando is very transient. That's good or bad, right? I guess for us, it wasn't what we were looking for anymore. But I feel like it's easier. You could move to Orlando tomorrow and plug in and build a network pretty easily.
Yep.
Where I felt like the Space Coast was a lot tighter knit.
Yep.
If you're kind of an outsider, you have to build that trust beforehand.
Yep.
So that was harder than I thought it would be. But that's also what I like about the Space Coast.
Right. Yeah, it's a big county. It's a small town.
Right.
And that's the thing. That's really. Maybe we should save that.
Damn, bro! I don't ever heard you say it like that. That's good stuff.
A little clip there.
Clip that.
But it's the truth. I mean, I've lived here for a long time. I've watched it grow, and you're absolutely right. There's like a barrier. It's not like terrible.
No.
But you gotta kind of show that like I'm here to stay. Oh, and by the way, I'm safe. I'm not trying to take advantage of you.
And I care about this community,
Exactly.
the people in it.
Exactly. Is it good for Brevard? Is it healthy for our community? Then I want to be a part of it. If you're that kind of citizen here, you can have all kinds of opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
It's true.
So there was that period of redefining myself and figuring that out. And there was that period of, to your point, my market in Orlando was the Lake Nona area close to the airport, right? So to get there from Merritt Island, Cocoa Beach, it's a 40-minute commute, not a big deal. So I spent probably about a year, and this was when I was still in property management, just figuring out what I was going to do and realized I don't want to do this anymore. So once I phased that out, it was kind of like, all right, now what? I don't have to go to Orlando anymore. So I started referring out that business and trying to build business here. Then of course COVID hit, and that did what it did. And so fast forward post COVID is when I really started looking at YouTube, started looking at the bigger picture, because the the referral game isn't always consistent.
Right.
You know, I could refer a client out to one agent here and one agent here, and they're not always going to have that same experience. So, actually partnered up with a friend who had recently gotten into real estate, and he still lives in Orlando. So it kind of gave us the ability to say, okay, now we can still keep things in house, make sure everything still works the same on the back end, put the same brand on it, still give people the same experience, but then logistically there was a way to actually make that work. And of course that's kind of led us into YouTube, and that's where we are now.
Yeah,
so it was that period of like redefining.
That's what it turned into.
Yeah.
Like, that's tight.
Yeah.
Super tight.
It's amazing what cool things can happen when people get intentional.
Right?
When there's a plan.
Yeah. And I don't think people understand, like, Matt and I've been talking about this a little bit, but like, understand like the residual impact that like good content has, you know, because it's like maybe every single person that's watching the video isn't like a direct sale, but like there's so many other other interactions that you're curating because you have good content out there. Like I guarantee people that are looking at these, like you walk through those that Vieira courtyard, like that courtyard stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's people sending that to their friends that they know are house hunting. You know what I mean? People like sending links because the walkthroughs of the properties are good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Things like that you can't even quantify. Your content's being used by all kinds of people for all kinds of different reasons, and it just enriches the whole ecosystem that you're in the center of. You know?
Well, and that was like the concept too of like we wanted to provide transparency, but also figure out how to do it where like you can be yourself. Because you see a lot of people get on camera and they're like, "Hello, thank you for watching me today." You know, and it's like, dude, that's you know, like it's hard to do. You know, like so I have people that ask, they're like, "How do I get better on camera?" I'm like, honestly, sit in your office, turn on Zoom, and stare at yourself. And have a conversation with yourself. I said, or you record it and play it back. But then I'm like, there's no one else watching. You can see yourself being an idiot. Then you feel what you have to do with your body to look normal. And
that's it. Don't get me wrong, that's painful stuff. Like the first couple videos are just like, man.
See, I talk to myself all the time. So
that was a perfect fit.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
Like, I mean, here's ultimately, look, if you got a lot going on, you got a lot going on, and there's a conversation you know you're about to go to, a little rehearsal is not too shabby, you know.
100%.
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
I'm right there with you. I also used to, communicate on a larger platform, so it's like rehearsal and going through it and making sure is like absolutely essential.
Right, 100%. But yeah, man, it's working. That's cool.
That's
Super
really cool. Yeah, that's rad. That's great. That's sound advice right there.
Let's talk about like your most vivid, visceral startup kind of like move into the area, what you have to do to get this thing done kind of deal. You know, are there any stories that pop out to you, all-nighters, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think, and it's not right when we moved here, but it was just it's like get out of your own way is what it was. It was like I didn't realize how much I was in my own way with a lot of things in life. And it was because, I would assume, like most people, we're probably our own biggest critic. And what I had in my mind, because I wasn't able to create that product right away, I was like, it's trash, and I'd have other people like, no, that's awesome, do it. And, fortunately for me, I have some really good mentors and coaches that I unfortunately just had to swallow my pride in certain situations and say, okay, I'm going to take your advice and do it. And then realize like, oh shit, I was in my own way. Now I moved out of my own way. I listened to the advice of people that I should have been listening to all along and actually doing what they're telling me to do. And I did it consistently. That's when things really started to change. And it was I'm like, damn, if I would have done this like 10 years ago, you know, where would I be now?
That consistency, man.
Right. So I would say, you know, you said it earlier when you said intentional, and, you know, so with the, if we're talking about the content side of the business, and we almost treat it like it's its own entity, the media company.
Yep.
And a lot of people, and I'm not just talking for real estate agents, I mean, any business, right? Especially if you're a service provider or a professional where you provide that face-to-face service, being intentional about the content and treating it almost more importantly than anything else, because that's what is going to get you in front of new people. Right. That's what's going to continue to nurture relationships. And if you do the right type of content and put it on the right platforms, which in my opinion is YouTube, obviously, but I know people that do it on Instagram. I know people that do it on TikTok.
Yeah.
Slightly different business model, but it's same principle. You do it consistently. You know, the work that I do today, the content we're creating now, I mean, you guys are going to be able to repurpose this for whatever you want, and it's going to be there as long as that platform is up and the topics are still relevant. So it's like, yeah, we invest some time now, but then cool. It's like we just bought an asset, right?
Yep.
Now that asset goes to work and it does its thing. Yep. So, yeah,
this content might outlive us.
It will outlive us.
Yeah,
I mean, it's 100%.
It's a weird thought.
Yeah.
It is, and I mean that's like a real thing. Is like now there's the creator economy.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't even sound like a real thing, but it is.
100%.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing there when you bring that up, Connor. Like it absolutely will outlive us. That's going to always be true. But like that's even more important. Why it's important to leave behind the right thing.
Right.
You know, create the right stuff, because it is going to outlive you, and there'll be a day where you can't defend something that you said or why you said it.
But that's but that's also where I would say consistency comes in as well, right? Because if you're too worried about like, oh, if I say this, is it going to haunt me in 10 years? It's like, well, hey, look, at the time, that's what I thought.
Right.
I was naive. I learned. But if you're consistent about getting content out and the message, the transparency, anybody's going to see that.
But also think, what do you want? What version of you do you want to live forever? And it's not, like for you, Joey, it's probably not a version where like, instead of you just being yourself on camera and walking through these properties, you could be it's this price and 50% off. You know what I mean? Like the hardcore sales guy that's like, man, that's not me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and so this switch that I'd say smart like content creators are making is they're just like deciding to be themselves. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those are the people that I can go down the road with. I've seen way too many, you know, I can get one-on-one with someone and we're talking just like this, and then they go and they introduce themselves, and all of a sudden, hi, I'm like, I don't like you now.
Yeah.
This is not you. You're doing a thing here. You know,
we're done.
It's funny. Like on that topic is, you know, when I first got into real estate, you have this image on, I got to wear slacks and a button-down shirt and all these, you know, you have to present yourself in a certain way. And to an extent you do, you're a professional, right? But that's not me personally. If you're the guy that likes to wear those clothes, you should wear those clothes. You should wear them every single day. Yeah. I am not that guy. Right. So what I found was after like 3 or 4 years, I'd be in the grocery store and I would just be wearing my gym clothes. And I'd be like, oh shit, there's a client over there. You know, my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm sweaty. I'm not doing this. And it's like you figure out you're turning into, and I'm like, wait a minute, if I can't be myself and I feel like I have to turn into something else for this to work, it's not going to work.
It's not manageable.
Right.
I mean, mentally it's not manageable. I mean, a human being, you're meant to be you.
Right.
And if you have to be somebody else, those are the people that end up in extended stay therapy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's just a fact. Like no human being can long term deal with that in a healthy way.
At some point it's got to be detectable, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm wearing clothes now that I don't necessarily want to wear because I feel like I need to be something else,
right.
And now I need to change my speech because I'm trying to fit a certain mold.
Yeah, it never stops with one thing.
Right.
It's always multiple things.
And then next thing you know, I'm sitting across from you and you're like, dude, this guy is just telling me what I want to hear.
Yeah.
You know, he's full of it. And then and then what?
Yep. Yeah, I actually, one of my hobbies, because I'm sure people have done it to me, so I'm not whatever. But I like spending time with guys sometimes. I won't, not all of them, but like they start off that way. And I look for areas of like, where can I deconstruct and get them to not be that? And I'll poke and I'll prod a little bit, and I'll try and get really personal with them. And that either makes them uncomfortable, or they're so wound tight, they're so over the edge, they just crumble and they get real.
Yeah.
And then when that happens, I'll look at that and I'm gonna be like, all right, now that's the guy I want to know all the time.
Right.
I know you got to be this or whatever. Fine. But that in our relationship, that's the guy that I want to know.
Yeah.
You know, and that's I think that's. I have a project right now that I'm doing that with.
Project meaning a human?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He's an awesome dude. He just. I think he feels like he has to be awesome.
Yeah.
You know? And that's
Yeah. I mean, that's a.
You don't.
That's a real thing, though. I think it is. You know, like I felt that pressure for a lot of years.
Me too.
I don't care now.
Yeah.
You know, I care about the legacy I leave behind, what my friends and my family think of me, and anybody that I've interacted with. I'm hoping that they can at least be like, hey, he's a good dude. You know, he's got good intentions, and you know, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but at the end of the day, that's kind of what it's all about.
100%. I was a pastor at a mega church, and it's all I mean, let's say all performance. Sorry, I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
But a lot of performance.
Right.
A lot of like this way, and then. But I'm going to be working with you the other 6 days of the week, and I know that ain't you. You know, but there's just a lot of this performance, this peacocking, and different things, and it's. Sorry, we're really getting off into this.
No, this is great. I have to show you guys this. So I don't know if you ever watch any of this. Like, you familiar with Barstool, right?
Yeah.
Barstool Sports.
Yes.
Do you ever see these behind the scenes like stool scenes things? So this one, like, this is the perfect example of authentic business content to like an extreme. It's literally just Dave Portnoy, like, walking through that he had to lay off 100 employees. And like, why that's so crazy to me is like, because it's not a fun time. Like, he's not like enjoying himself. He's like, this shit sucks. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to do this. But he's just like, he's controlling that narrative for like the Barstool Corporation instead of like TMZ running with it and it being like, hey, you know, or you know, Barstool's clearly failing. They're losing $12 million a year. He's the one saying all that, and then he puts it on YouTube and like monetizes it. And they're like They're bringing in the guys that they laid off to interview because they're like, hey man, it's all good, right? Like, but and that's so wild to me because it's a perfect example of like any business owner in their right mind where like traditionally would be like, nah, we keep this stuff under the cover. This stuff doesn't go on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, but it's left up the rug. Sweet.
Yeah, we won't talk about that. Let's get back to college football. You know what I'm saying?
See, and that's what's great we're not so concerned about. When you're not concerned about the polished image and you're just concerned about people.
Right, exactly.
If you refocus and you realign, you're just like, you know, about people, the polished in the image, that happens all on its own.
Yeah.
It's all your focus. But if you're focused on the image, eventually that's going to crack.
I think
people are going to see the leaks. They're going to see what's falling through, and it's not sustainable.
We've been fed that for so long now, though, right?
100%.
You know, when the internet became the thing, it was like it went from, okay, now you can put video on the internet, to everyone was like, who can make the most like polished, professional, whatever video, and then it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I'm over it. Like, just who's real and who's not real. You know, what's real, what's not real.
100%.
Yeah, I like that.
No, but yeah, perfect example of like, I think it just shows that that's not what people want.
No,
they don't want like the professional realtor archetype Joey. They want Joey. You know what I mean? And the people that don't want that, they're like you're niching down to the people that do. Like that's how you if you try to speak to everybody, you don't speak to anybody kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the beautiful thing. There's probably a ton of people out there that watch my videos that are like, dude, I can't stand that guy. Guess what? They don't call me. I don't know who they. They might dislike the video. They might leave a comment or whatever.
Hey,
Every
but
once in a while,
they're still watching, baby.
one will reach out. But that's the beautiful thing. It's like you don't. Just imagine going through your business and saying, okay, I've got 100 people to sort through today. Out of these 100, I know 50 of them I'm not going to get along with.
Yep.
Well, now I don't even really know who they are,
Right.
and they're calling someone that they will get along with. Maybe. I don't know. But
Yeah. I'm finding that. Like I grew up kind of a people pleaser. Mm-hmm. So it was a difficult truth for me to realize I couldn't please everybody, and now I don't want to. Like it's just one of those things. It's not sustainable. But yeah, no, not everyone's going to like you. Connor's still trying to learn that lesson.
It's tough, man.
The people pleaser box, man, that's a hard one that's hard to live up to. I put myself in there for years. I was that guy. You try to make everybody happy, and you end up like pissing people off because you can't. So
and the pressure you put on yourself. I mean, the damage you're doing to you prevents you from being able to please. It's a very weird dynamic, but 100%. Like I grew up that way. Like you have different environments you grow up in. I grew up in an interesting environment, and I was always looking for ways to make sure I was okay with the people in the room. And then you just take that, and then that goes into your other relationships. It protects you here, so you take it here, and then you take it over there, and then you do all that, and then it just kind of snowballs, and then now it's a part of your personality. Well, what does Joey need? He's sitting right in front of me. What does he need me to be to make sure he's good? You start to like just take all that on. It's not sustainable.
Right.
It's not sustainable.
No, man. Talking about sustainability, like taking care of yourself, like how do you do that, Joey? I mean, what are you doing outside of work? That you were talking about gym clothes. I mean, you hitting the CrossFit box. What are you doing?
I'm not doing as much now as I used to and as I should. But
that's really irritating me. He's like super fit. He's like,
I know you're over there looking like an athlete, Joey. Don't be sandbagging on us.
I walk around the block every morning with my dog. I get these. So I don't know what happened.
No. So I would consider myself, I was that guy. Like I graduated high school and I was like, I'm still an athlete, even though I didn't play a sport or anything.
Hey, Joe, pull that up to you a little bit too, bro.
There we go. How's that good?
Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
All right, good.
And that was just me, So I always identified as an athlete, and so I just was involved with doing shit all the time. I don't know. And so I used to train jiu-jitsu when I was in Orlando. Love that. Best shape of my life outside of when I was in probably better shape, because I was like full man, testosterone going and all that.
We just had the hot box guys on Carlson, Gracie, Melbourne. Yeah. That's where I go.
Okay. Yeah. So I trained in Orlando for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. That's actually where I met my current business partner. He and I trained together. So when he hit me up and was like, hey, dude, I got my real estate license, I was like, okay. And I'm thinking about him, how he was 10 years ago. And I'm like, well, we've been in some pretty crazy situations together. I know what kind of resilience he has. I'm like, okay. Let's
cool. He can make it in real estate.
I was like, I'm like, if you can, I'm like, he gets scrappy on the mat. So I'm like, okay, I know what you've got deep inside. Jiu-jitsu was like, that was my jam.
Cool.
And then over here, I just haven't gotten into it because I'm trying to be more family focused now. And over there, it worked out because our academy was like 5 minutes from my house.
Right.
My kid took classes there. My wife did fitness classes. So it was kind of like you go as a family in the evening. We all got our work in.
Yep.
Here was a little different because now I'd be like, I would be taking my time away from the family for me to go train, unless I go train in the middle of the day. And right now I'm so like laser focused on building the business that I'm like, I haven't given myself that card yet.
Right.
So maybe if I find somewhere that starts like a 5 a.m. class, as much as I wouldn't want to do it, I would probably do it. So
how long were you doing it though, Joey?
Like 3 or 4 years.
Blue belt, purple belt.
Just got my purple.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got my purple. And
that basically means Joey's a black belt.
No.
That's high up there, bro.
That's serious stuff.
I don't like sitting in a room where the majority of the people can kick my ass.
That's the weird thing about this area in Florida is like everyone's a fighter. Like it's a weird, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't like that back in Ohio.
I'm scrappy. I grew up having to be scrappy, but I mean, I don't want to wrestle you guys.
That's tight though, man.
Well, that's what you learn through jiu-jitsu too, is you're like, oh, there's a lot of people out there that could severely harm another human that you would not suspect it, you know? So I'm like, okay, I'm very lucky that when I was young, I didn't get murdered by somebody, you know?
I don't want to brag, Joey, but I just got my second stripe on my white belt yesterday.
Yeah, hey, man.
I had to brag publicly on the podcast.
Yeah, do it. Hey, that's what's nice about no-gi is you show up and you're you're all you're all wearing board shorts, and then one guy just chokes you that is completely, you know, you're like, dude, that guy's skinny. He's got nothing, and next thing you know, you're like pass out.
What he didn't tell you is that he's like Dwight Schrute. He's in like a class with a bunch of 8-year-olds. So
for sure.
He pinned the toughest 8-year-old yesterday.
Right, I got 200 pounds on everybody.
There you go. I was going to say, you don't have many training partners that are bigger than you, do you?
No. I'm holding it down at least in one. I mean, but I'm from Ohio. Everybody's this size and weight. You know what I mean?
No.
How tall are you? 6'4"?
No, I'm 6'4". He's like
6'9".
6'9".
Oh, 3 even, baby. Holding it down.
And he has a twin. There's a second one out here, that, like not out here, but out there that looks like this guy. It's same size.
Nick's still in Ohio, and like Portsmouth is just in the sticks in Ohio, but he's 4-stripe white, about to get his blue, so he's been going longer than I have. Yeah,
that's good.
Has he been over here? Have you guys gone and
No, we're working on that. He's dodging me. He's scared. Joey doesn't want to roll.
Yeah. I'd be afraid right now. I've been away from because people are like, oh, you're a purple belt. I'm like, dude, if I stepped on the mats, I would be like, hey, can I put on my white belt? You know, like I know that's frowned upon, but it's like, do I have to wear that thing? I don't want to wear it. Yeah, it's like my buddy's always like, you gonna come to an open mat? I'm like, only if it's no gi. He's like, why? I'm like, because I don't have to wear my belt, man.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Well, so that makes sense. The tie in, like Jocko speaks your language.
Yeah,
you listen in to Joe Rogan, like you're big with the Joey.
Yeah,
right, cool, dude.
I'm not big on the Spotify deal though. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
What happened to Spotify?
Well, you're an Apple Music listener or something, or Apple Podcast.
Dude, Spotify is a pain in the ass. I feel like it's like the podcast.
What do you use, Matt? Apple Music?
Apple Music.
Okay.
Yeah. No, they bust my balls about it all the time. Like, why are you on that? And my wife, too. She's like, just do Spotify. What? I don't understand. What's your problem?
Well, you can watch the clips on YouTube. You know what I mean? I feel like that's where, like, you spent your YouTube, big on YouTube, too. Yeah. Like, when you listen to stuff, YouTube or music.
Yeah, YouTube.
Yeah. So I do Spotify because of Joe Rogan. You know, that's like literally everything else is like Apple. It just works better.
The man's got it going on, dude. Man, in Hotbox, we at the gym on US 1, we have a Wu-Tang flag and like a Joe Rogan Experience flag on the wall with the American flag. You know, that's all of them right there. That covers everything you need.
Has Chance come and wrestled you yet?
He hasn't yet. No, we have a founder, one of the companies that we're funding that is a purple belt as well.
Okay.
And no, we need to get it in. We need to get it in. I think he's dodging me too.
So is that part of your like deal strategy? Is you're like, okay, we get to terms and it's like now we need to go roll.
Right. You know? It should be. I think we should work that in there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to participate, you know, but yeah.
Chance is probably pretty serious though. I mean, he's not a small guy.
He's not a small guy, and he's very, in every other part of his life, he's very,
he's liturgical.
Yeah.
You know?
He's the ex-co-founder of the Call of Duty franchise.
Okay.
Yeah. So he knows
really
a lot.
Neat guy.
Like he was out shooting like bear at 50 cal so that he could animate it. You know what I mean? That's cool. Dangerous guy, right?
Yeah. He's really. You meet him though, like he's not like, hi, I'm Chance Plesko, co-founder. He's not that. He's not that. You never know. He and I met in Orlando at a tech event. We were both waiting at the bar for our drinks, and we just struck up a conversation. He didn't know who I was. I knew who he was. And then now we're raising money for his new company.
Nice.
It's just he's just a really, really super cool guy.
Well, next time you guys hang out, give me a shout. You know,
bro. 21st, we're gonna do a live podcast taping at Rising Tide.
Rising Tide.
Okay.
In the port.
Okay.
Chance is our guest.
Okay.
Yeah, so man, come on over. All
right.
Yeah, we're gonna do a live podcast event, and yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right in my backyard too, so I could.
Perfection.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We made it happen, boys.
Look at
at
that connection.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to ask Joey the big ones? You know what I mean? The big.
Oh yeah,
questions?
yeah. We got two questions here for you, buddy.
Okay.
I don't know if you've watched any of the podcasts, but this is the questions that we kind of like to land on.
Sure.
So number one, just as a founder, as a husband, dad, like what's kind of your moral compass, like the internal thing that like you kind of like, is there something you just kind of go by, you live by? That's the first thing. Second thing is, what advice would you offer an entrepreneur that could essentially be in the midst and the thick of like a bunch of crap, which is where most of them are, or maybe someone who's thinking about, they're an engineer, they're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, they're thinking about taking a step and a dive, like, so what makes Joey tick, and then what advice would you offer an entrepreneur?
Yeah, man, it's a lot to unpack there, but
You got time to go, Joe.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think what makes me tick now is different than what made me tick 4 years ago, if I'm being honest.
Good.
I think the biggest thing is being honest with yourself and being humble. To be honest. To be honest, yeah. Saying being honest, right?
A lot of honesty flowing.
Yeah, there's a lot of honesty going around. I would say being humble, for sure. I learned a lot about that through jiu-jitsu. And just lumps that I've taken, not just in business, but in life, and being honest with yourself and realizing, hey, I need help in this area. Who can I go to, right? Putting yourself and surrounding yourself with the right people. And if you don't have access to those people directly, in the digital age that we're in, you can get access to them.
Yep.
And so whether that's curating your life, curating your Facebook feed, so you're only seeing things that you want to see from people that you want, or not, or, and avoiding that, podcast, audiobooks, you name it. So I would say being humble, and then you've got to believe in something bigger than yourself, right? And I'm not going to get into religion or faith here,
right.
But I think that if you don't believe in something else, like what are you living for? Like,
right.
What's inspiring you, right?
Yeah.
So there's got to be a higher belief, and you've got to have faith in not just yourself, but I feel like the universe as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys know the entrepreneurial path is not always the easiest one. It's definitely not a straight path. So a lot of times you have to have faith in what you're doing, and if you don't see a clear path, it doesn't mean it's not the right road to take. It just means you have to be strategic about it, and you've got to be resilient and consistent, And I would say that if you're going to do that, just be intentional with whatever it is that you're going to do. And I would pick one thing first, and just focus on that. And then once you've got that one thing at least under control, then you could reevaluate it and decide if you're going to add something else, if you're going to re-engineer that one thing or what it is, but just focus on that one thing and be consistent with it, and that would be it. I will add a story to that, though.
Yeah, do it.
We like stories.
And this is probably going to sound stupid, but it was like, this was the beginning of this year, and I learned so much about myself that kind of helped me focus on that one thing. I had a friend, he was like, hey, there's this 10,000 push-up challenge. You want to do it? And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, let's do that. And so then I was like, well, I think that's a lot of push-ups, isn't it? And I was like, how long do we have to do this? He's like, it's in a month. And I was like, okay, well, how the hell am I going to do that? And so I started reverse engineering the math on okay, in order to do that, I'd have to do 333 push-ups a day. And I'm like, I don't even think I can do 100 push-ups right now, in a row. So how am I going to do 333 7 days a week for a month? And so then I broke it down even more and was like, okay, well, if I break it down into sets of 33, I'm like, that's manageable, because I can kind of get to 33 push-ups without really a lot of lactic acid build. So it was like I spent a week planning on how to do this thing. And then I realized, I'm like, okay, so if I do 33 push-ups 11 times a day, every single day, I'll hit 10,000 push-ups. And so I started doing this, and then I started getting sore, day 4. And then I'm like, oh, I can't do my kettlebell workout today. Or it's like, should I do it? And I was like, well, wait a minute. The real goal was to do 10,000 push-ups, not, step load up to the next size kettlebell, not to get 5 miles. So I was like, you know what, let's put all this other stuff to the side right now. Let's just focus on the push-ups. just because I committed to it, right? And I'm like, I committed to it, I have to do it. So I pushed everything else aside. And because I knew the small efforts that I had to make throughout the day to reach the goal, and I eliminated other things out of my life so I could have more time to focus on that one thing, I actually did it. I know it's like, oh, I'm still surprised at myself, right? But like 15 days in was tough. I was like,
oh man,
what am I going to do? I'm like, it's hard to move. I'm like, I'm halfway there. But it was like I pushed through that, and it was like 5 to 6 days of like this just grinding through it, and then one day it just got better. And I was like, hey, I'm not sore anymore. And I was like, oh, I can bang out a lot of push-ups now. And then I'm like, walking at a flag football game, and this guy's like, dude, what have you been doing? And you're kind of big. Are you on something? I was like, no, man, I'm just doing push-ups. He's like, what? So it's like, then I'm like, oh, I'm actually getting in better shape. And that wasn't even the thing. So it was like, digesting that. It was just like, hey, just focus on one thing. Yeah. Be super intentional about it. If it's the right thing that's going to move the needle.
Nice.
And so that's my
amazing.
That's my sidebar on it, But I learned so much about myself through that.
I love it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
No, it's great. Such great advice, man, on both fronts. And while we have 3 content creators here, I have to give this little piece. So, amazing content creator on Instagram, mainly. The dude's name is Rich Webster. He was throwing out some podcasting content creator stats, and I thought this was so good. And I feel like the theme, at least of this conversation, has been consistency. Just staying at it.
Yeah.
That rings true for people making things. It rings true for people building things, right? And so this dude's a little tiny bit, it's super good. He said, you don't have to be good, you have to be stubborn. He said 1.8 million podcasters will quit within 3 episodes. And that's just not for podcasters, right? That's how many people start YouTube channels.
Yeah.
Episode 2 or 3 and then nothing else, right? So 1.8 million podcasters will quit within 3 episodes. Another 180,000 will quit by 20 episodes. And then he said, if you make it to the top, if you make it to episode 21, you are in the top 1%.
Wow.
And he said survival's more important than skill. I think that's pretty dope.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I feel like every time I hit a point where I'm ready to give something up or quit and I push past it is when I see some kind of breakthrough.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we've been there. And I mean, I'm there right now. I mean, there's building up a investment network in Brevard County is not for the faint of heart. It's really difficult to do, and there's so many moving pieces and parts. If you're going to do it the right way, if it's not just an investor club, but you're really intentional about what this is going to be in 20 years, which it's in the name, legacy. That's what we're trying to leave. So. You face all kinds of garbage. I mean, just constantly. And I do find when I push through with the support of my wife and the support of this team, when we push through together, we are better on the other side. We're wiser on the other side. We make, we learn to make better choices. I mean, there's so much benefit on the other side of those things. And quite frankly, that's where your future content's coming from. That's where how you're going to educate others and how you're going to see the room and see the world. All of that comes through struggle. It doesn't come through just layers and layers of success.
Yeah.
It comes through all the struggle. And I think that's what people need to be okay with. We got to learn as a society to be okay with the struggle because we're going to have it.
Yeah.
It's what you do in it.
Right.
That matters, so.
And hey, I mean, guys, this shit's really hard and everything we're doing is difficult, but what do you think Jocko would say to that?
Good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Hey, Joey, thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Cool.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Cheers.